Good evening from LCC International University. This is the Monday late afternoon when we do our coffee with alumni. So my great honor is to host Milda Dzidolikienė, the class of 2006. So Milda, I hope you have a cup of coffee or at least
I have water, which is also good.
Yes, I can share with the water as well. And so truly an honor to have you. Thank you for finding time in your busy schedule. So Milda, class of 2006. So this has been a while ago, but tell us maybe now about yourself, about your, what happened after graduation and what you do right now.
Sure. So hi, everybody. Hi, Aista. Hi, audience. Pleasure to connect to you in this virtual setup, actually in the, not just an ordinary day. So we are celebrating also International Women's Day. So a virtual flowers goes to you, Aista, and all everybody out there. So I spent amazing 4 years at LCC as I told you, Aista, we fundamentally shaped who I am because I was, I think, a different person after high school graduation when I entered LCC, after 4 years when I left LCC, which I think opened up entirely new horizons for me. After studies, I went LCC studies. I studied abroad in the UK, in Manchester, for a Master's of Science in Business Administration, Management of Projects degree. Business Administration was back in LCC. So I spent 3 years in the UK, 1 year for the master's studies, 2 years getting professional into project management field. And then in 2009, I decided to move back to Vilnius. And this is where I'm living since 2009. Then professionally, I started working for a British bank called Barclays as a project manager, then ultimately became the leader of the area of project management. And at the moment, I'm working in Danske Bank, also had a few roles there, switching from automation space now in the CRE8 systems. And I have 2 daughters, I have a husband, and I'm balancing work and life and spending time for myself, but for further education ever since I was left LCC. So that's very briefly about myself, and it's an honor to talk to you.
Right, and that's truly an honor to have you here. As I was just briefly mentioning that, I mean, I recall you as a very active student during LCC days, that you were seen and you were quite well known amongst the LCC community. So I think today we'll also later take any questions from the audience, whether there are questions related to your career growth, to your current job, because I think your title is also very intriguing, and we'll want to learn more about what the IT lead of the people tribe is at the Danske Bank. So I know that the bank has gone through the entire transformation, and I'm sure we'll hear more about this. So for the audience and our viewers, please take note that you can ask questions. We'll be glad to take those questions at the end, and to learn more about Milda and her work. And as Milda mentioned today, like truly, it's a perfect day to have the conversation with Milda on March 8th, as we are celebrating not just women, but we are celebrating achievements of women all over the world. So Milda, today we want to give the floor to you because, I mean, you came with a very interesting topic about courageous leadership. And as I mentioned, like at the beginning, truly LCC is always talking about, being the university that prepares the future leaders. So when you came with the topic of courageous leadership, it was like, yes, like this is all tying up to, who we are and what we, who we aim to develop. But without, wanting to push you in one or another direction, I want to give the floor to you so that, you could lead us into your insights about the courageous leadership. And as you said, the questions asked, what is it? What are the do's and don'ts? And what could it mean for each of us?
Thanks so much, Aista. So when you messaged me, was about 2 weeks or so ago, if there is any topic I would be willing to talk about, the first topic that popped right in my head is about courage in leadership. And to be honest, I came up with this topic not maybe knowing what it really entails, even though maybe I thought I did at the time. So if I started what I thought it was and what it unraveled as I started to research it over the last two weeks. So I always thought it's about, taking an action, stepping up for what you believe in, leaning into this unknown, this uncomfortable zone, and always having this thought on the back of your head, is this something in line with what I truly believe in? And then if it is, then I do it, right? And if it's something I have this back feeling in my stomach that no, this is not right, I also raise a hand and say no, and not entirely agreeing with it. So that's what I ultimately thought it is, and what I tried to cultivate in my daily life. But actually, when I started researching it more over the last 2 weeks and reading a number of articles and watching the TEDx talks and even podcasts, I came across this woman called Brené Brown, and she was such an inspiration to me for this topic. I don't know if you came across her before. And she actually unraveled to me of this concept of being vulnerable when we talk about leadership. And to be honest, I have never thought about this myself until very recently. So it was just a finding for myself as well, that actually, according to Brené Brown, and I totally believe it in that thought, is that courage comes from being vulnerable, because accepting that we are not perfect, because if we want to paint the picture of ourselves, which is obviously is not true, that we are just perfect, we are good at this and that, we will never take courageous steps in our daily life, because by leaning into something what's uncomfortable, through courage, you need to be exposed, you need to take a risk, and it's damn scary, always. And kind of this additional angle of it was something new to me that I've also shared with a few of my colleagues and family. Do you know that it's coming from that? And it was a revelation for myself either. So, and when I think about courage, it's not about something heroic that you do once in a lifetime, saving life as well could be that. But to me, it's something in a moment when you are torn between to take an action or not, to do something or not do something. You're always in this battle that you actually, if it's something that correlates to what you truly believe in, to your values, you actually do the action. So that's roughly what I believe it is, and what came across through this small research that I've done. But I say I'm not an expert by this at all. I haven't done hundreds of interviews, and I don't have thousands of data that would support this. So anyone who is interested in the topic, I would definitely recommend browsing of Brené Brown. But in this topic, in this conversation here, I can share my own perspectives, but they are by no means will be that, deep and based on data and facts and so on. But for me, it was very interesting to actually learn this myself, and I'll continue to do that.
So, in all the things that you've been learning, right? So how, where would you say you've seen yourself, in taking the actions of being that courageous leader, and what have been the lessons learned for you?
So one situation that comes to my mind very quickly is in the very early days while I was still living in the UK. I had a manager called Steve, and in my mind, he's still one of the greatest leaders I have met in my life. And I was working together with him on a project we were rolling out a particular system for travel management cards. Our client was Greater Manchester Transport Executive, which is like a municipality, and they were rolling out new setup for to have the passengers the cards so they can count discount automatically, because it was not existent at that time in 2007. And I was collating certain data of what we have done, what were some key facts, and he shared this with me in a note to validate before sending it to multiple stakeholders, around 2,000 people. And I supplied all the facts, he shared all the information, and then I figure about a second later that it's wrong data that I supplied. I missed this and that, and I remember going back to him with my cheeks entirely red, heart pounding like it will just almost fall out of the chest. And I said, like, I made a mistake, and it's the wrong facts, and I'm so sorry to get you into trouble. That's exact words I used. I remember it so well, even though it's more than 30 years ago now. And the response that he gave me was, Milda, I would be in a much bigger trouble if I didn't have them. It's just corrected. So all I got is a compliment instead. And it just really unraveled to me that it's okay to make mistakes. One thing, it's okay. Nobody is perfect. And as soon as we know, we just acknowledge them, we fix, and we move forward. And we don't have to be fixated to be always right. Of course, we need to stream for the best quality of our tasks that we are doing, but things like that can happen to anyone. And this just acknowledgement in my head that I made a mistake and it was totally fine. I didn't get scolded for it. I didn't lose my job. In the end, I got a compliment. We just fixed it and it was all fine. But in my head, it was like a tragedy. It was the worst thing that could happen in that moment in my own mind. And the third lesson that I got from it is actually that I now use it in my own team. When people make mistakes, at least I try to. I'm not always that good as Steve was to me, but I aim to be at that level, to always try for that, to see like, hey, it's okay. We are here in this together. We'll just fix it. And this actually was one of the first leadership lessons that I had, and I still remember that little bit. I aim to amplify it in my own team now. And I think that, yeah, it's okay to make mistakes, because without this, I don't think courage is possible.
So this would be one of the do's of the courageous leadership, and not being, would you say that is one of the do's, that not to be afraid, well, to take mistakes as part of the learning journey?
Exactly. I think because we just set our own boundaries ourselves, and we just shouldn't do that. And because if we want to have this picture that we are always striving for our best, of course we should, but at the same time, if we are always staying in our comfort zone, we will always be prompted to stay within that comfort zone rather than expanding our horizons and take small, courageous decisions, where it is to fight for our team, where it's to stand up for what we think is right, or the opposite, to raise our hand and saying, actually, no, I don't agree to this. I don't think it's right. It takes enormous amount of courage to do that. And especially if you are in the minority group, whether it's being like a woman in a group of male, or a foreigner in between other jobs, doesn't matter. It's even 10 times harder to do that. And because the thought of looking stupid, looking not good enough, not smart enough, not prepared enough is always there. And unless you accept that within your own heart, that nobody in the end is perfect, everyone exists, it really gives you that extra power to leap into this. So that for sure is one of the main lessons that I've got, and I've been so lucky to have it so early that I can now continue to do that. And also I use the same thing for my team. If we are on this, like, what else we can do, what I was also thinking, since I think it constantly loops you into your true values, because you can only stand up and continue to expand your limit if you are truly believing that it's for the right cause, and it's always connects to who you are, who you truly believe in. And it's different for everyone. What is courageous to me will be courageous to you, and vice versa. So one of the things I could encourage students, what I continue is to always continue to know yourself better. What is important to you? We should know that. And when things don't match, we need to be vocal about it, in my opinion. So it's always loops you back, I think, to who you truly believe in courage. And it's family, it's work, it's what values you want to bring in.
Well, I think like this is our like part of the, I think this is our third Monday when we're doing these coffee with alumni sessions, and you kind of continue the same thread where values always come up when we've talked with our alumni. And so I wonder, whether truly whether this is where we're seeing the LCC trend, or it's very universal. But I mean, with all of the alums that we've been talking about, I mean, everybody kind of keeps saying, well, how much values are shaping in terms of what job they end up doing, and also I think the way they are actually doing that job.
Totally. I think it's the basis for all the choices we make, bigger or small. Is something big like what job I want to be in, and something small like how I can best influence the current situation that I am, the people that surround me, how I can exploit their potential to the best possible situation, how I can move the situation around me for something better. So people who are around you can be more fulfilled, and the overall results can also speak for themselves later on.
So tell us a bit about your current role and responsibilities, and what is the IT lead for People Tribe? What does that role include? And so yeah, tell us of your daily reality now.
Absolutely. So Danske Bank has recently gone through an organizational transformation impacting about 5,000 employees, if not more, where previously the organization was very siloed. Well, here is the IT department, here is the corresponding business department, and so on. And now at the moment, everybody has merged into smaller teams where you have both representatives in there. So maybe it would be easier to follow the example that I used to explain, is like if we were in the construction business, for example, we would have previously departments of like plumbing, electricity, design, architects, and so on. And now at the moment, there are smaller teams with an architect, with a plumber, with a designer in it to build small effective houses. So this is the overall on the organizational level, the change has happened. And I am a lead for the People Tribe, and People Tribe is the organization that has both IT capabilities in it, as well as capabilities from business, from group HR. And our mission is to digitalize employee journeys in Danske Bank. It means various processes that employees are going through in the organization on their daily basis, like very simple ones would be knowing how much holiday you have, how to go about simple HR process like doing mandatory training. If you are a manager, how do you hire? What's the process consistent do you use for that? How do you pay? What data is available for you, for your area, and so on. So it covers all of the internal both systems and processes when it comes to employee management in the bank. And I lead a global team, so I have employees both from Denmark, Lithuania, and India. And it's a global role. I have a business partner from the business side, and we are there together to develop and bring IT solutions into some manual process that currently exists in those examples that I've just mentioned. Okay. And that's the role. And for me, to be honest, I stepped into this role. I have never worked with HR systems before. So it's entirely new domain to me. And I was thinking as well, could I do it? Yes, I think I could do it. And hence I am doing it. But it also took courage from me, and also a lot of back and forth, what it would mean for my family, what it would mean for the other activities I do, because now I'm reading about HR systems. I'm talking with other companies, how they manage their HR departments, and so on and so on. It's always a compromise that you make, but so far I'm happy. I enjoy what I'm doing, and I think we can bring some positive change in the organization.
Well, in one way, I wanted to kind of ask, how do you see yourself as the courageous leader in the position? But I also want to kind of make this question a bit broader, because I mean, you finished BA, you majored in business at LCC, right? So that was back in 2006. Then you did Master of Science for a year in the UK. You worked as project manager for a few years, and then you moved to Lithuania and started the career at Barclays. And then now you're in this position. So, I mean, your career growth was pretty rapid and pretty truly impressive. So what would you say has contributed? I mean, of course, it's who you are as a person, but also what has contributed to, you ending up in a certain career path, and what have been the virtues, or your leadership, courageous leadership symptoms that were identified by the companies who have taken you on?
To be honest, it's been very spontaneous. If someone would have told me that, oh, like in X amount of years, what about you leading something on HR related IT systems? I will go like, whoa, really? Could this be me? I have no clue how to go about this. So to be honest, these little situations that is on a day-to-day basis that have come just really to me. I never had a big plan, with milestones, what I need to do to get to this goal, even though planning doesn't get me. I think it's good to have it in most cases, but I never applied it for my own career planning or anything like that. It really happened very spontaneous. Just to be honest, took some decisions on the way that led me to where I am today. And sometimes, to say, I had some sleepless nights, figuring out how to go about certain situation, especially recently landing into entirely new. I mean, because previously my experience was on HR infrastructure, on IT infrastructure projects, which is more underlying in terms of the mainframe systems, networks, and so on. And at the moment, I'm very facing from the user side. So it's I'm always now into this Gartner articles and so on, with what it takes, but I've never planned this to be honest, to be the case.
Mm-hmm. So, based on your experience, and as I said, you never developed the plan. Well, what would be your advice, for, current LCC students who are finishing up their studies or will finish up in a year or two, and they are fearing the real world and not sure how to even start their career path? What would your advice be, and what could that courageous leadership look for them in as they, think about entering the real world?
I would suggest that, if you can, leave this session with one mantra, that would be for me: pause, think, feel, go. And if you approach with certain situation to do something, you pause and think, does it correlate with what I truly enjoy doing? Does it give me, goosebumps talking about the subject? And does it feel right at the back of my stomach? And then you just go and do it. It's really about finding what you generally find interest. For me, it has always been engaging with people, talking to people, aiming to help them advance in multiple situations. And I find true reward in doing that in my current job as well. And I would just notice yourself. Notice what do you enjoy doing in your study fields, in the interactions that you have with your professors, with your classmates, with what books you enjoy reading, and just continue to explore more. Then you will know yourself more, and you will be, I think, inclined to make these right decisions when they come your way, because like the worst decisions are the ones we never make. So I think most important is just to make one, and then you'll know whether, if it feels right, you continue on that path. If it doesn't feel right, you stop, and then you readjust.
Kind of leads to your main points, as when you were talking about the courageous leadership, it's about having the courage and just being not being afraid to be uncomfortable. And like, this is what you're again stating, of just like taking the risks to go forward. I mean, we always define LCC students as the biggest risk takers, because I mean, they aren't afraid to take the risk of coming into a very different educational system, of coming into LCC. I mean, and you were one of those risk takers back in your days. So how would you, what would be your advice to maybe future high schools, well, not future, current high school students who are considering LCC, but who have no idea what they want to do in life, or they aren't sure. Maybe you could be sharing also from your experience what that meant for you, and and what would
Totally.
your insights be to them?
Totally. I think LCC laid the foundation for me to be uncomfortable, because as briefly mentioned at the start, from graduation from my high school, I don't know, maybe it was because it was still very much Soviet-based type education that I was coming from. I was extremely shy. I was not expressing my opinion. I was always more in the silent. But at LCC, the overall situation, the engagement that we had with professors. I remember so vividly baking lasagna with Phyllis and Dave Rhodes, and with the other students around us. And it was something like coming from like the school, that you and your teachers and like professors do something like this. It was completely unimaginable coming back from the high school. And I think this overall connection, that you are like partners, you discuss topics together, and this overall partnership now in leadership, that's the concept that I truly believe in. And I think this ignites courage as well from me, and also from the team. I hope we should all, of course, ask them, but by no means continue to find new things. And like I mentioned, this overall thing of vulnerability, it's entirely new concept. I never thought about it this way. So I'm always thinking how I can be now even more vulnerable, at my work, and encourage that from my team. But yeah, this is just one example. And I think LCC truly gave this this ground to flourish, because we are almost like forced at the beginning. So what do you think about it? Like, why you think this way? And this constant push for critical thinking, for argumentation, it just became part of who we are. And I know from my own, I didn't have it, or I didn't know I had it before coming to LCC. And just because expressing a lot, as I mentioned, especially in a wider group, is difficult. It really takes courage. And you may think it's simple, but it's not.
When you were considering your studies, after high school, did you know what you want to be when you grow up? That's always the most crucial question. I mean, comparing to where you are right now. I mean, as you mentioned that you never imagined you would be where you are, but just kind of, I mean, you had chosen business back in your early days. So did you have certain hopes and expectations which direction you would be going?
I think this was influenced primarily by my family, by my parents, who are both entrepreneurs. And this business concept has always been on the back of my mind, I think, while I was growing up. Since both of them started their own companies, they employed people, and they were setting up their companies for a great, of course, at that time, but they also truly believed. And so I think the overall direction towards business was definitely coming from that perspective. And for me, it all connects also to the individuals and the teams that are around in business to make things work, and actually to leave this better than we found. That's my ultimate goal and mode. Now I'm owning certain HR systems. I have the team in multiple locations, and I want to better than it currently is. So That's my goal. And I think business studies is just a foundation, a vehicle for me to do this. But as mentioned, it was very, very spontaneous.
Mhm. I want to encourage the audience, in case they have any questions to Milda on her experience, or whether any advice, please do not hesitate. And Milda, don't worry about the background noise. We understand everybody is online right now, so it's okay. We all work from different setups. I think, for me, it would be the goal of doing these webinars is the goal to give advice to students who are considering LCC, right? Whether this is the right place for them or not. So what would be your insights, your words of wisdom to the future generations, right? How would you define LCC, and what would you advise or not advise?
So as I mentioned, like LCC really laid the foundation to express your thinking, right? To express your opinion. And I think this is an absolute core for any situation we are in, whether any industry we are in, whether it's business, whether it's I don't know, social activities, anything. And because then I think we truly can make it better around us, right? And yeah, I'll just be able to repeat myself. I think we always are looked back to our values around us, and the LCC laid a strong foundation for that. Like one of my personal values is harmony. Like I want to feel the balance in the room. And I recently have been attending a meeting with two colleagues who are like talking over each other, and we had to agree the certain the ownership of 3 IT tools, basically moving from one area to another. And I always said, stop, what's going on? Why are you talking like this? Let's just stop in this moment, take a step back, because it's already at the point of the iceberg that we are in these situations. And then it came out to me that one was saying, I'm not having enough information. The other thing that is that I've already shared it, and doesn't matter. But harmony is important to me, and then I take these actions to reinstate this in the situations that I happen to be in, at least to influence in that direction. That it's better, because then I believe that only when you have that, you can have trust in your team, you can have open communication, and you are able to discuss topics that are not that comfortable, that bring you forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a question from actually current LCC student. So the question, I think you can also read it in the chat box. Well, how did LCC equip you for your current career? And how did it create the safe environment for you to grow and take risks to become a courageous leader? And maybe you can find some specific examples or your experiences to share this through.
First of all, I don't think I'm truly a courageous leader. I think it's a journey, it's a lifetime journey that I am in, that I'll encourage everybody else to be in. I don't think you can always, to be honest, ever arrive to this point. But what we can do is take these small moments that we are faced on a daily basis to speak up, to do something that we are not comfortable with, to do something that we haven't done before, because only then we can move into entirely new space, which will open, another space that we were not even seeing while being on this mountain, right? Because only when you step onto another mountain, you see that, hey, there are 3 other mountains to climb, right? And where LCC equipped me with that, it's just really just laying the foundation for that, to challenge situations where I think we are not right, to push for justice, even if I may, in certain situations where, for example, I had a battle not in my current company, but in one of the previous employments where I worked, where I wanted to promote a woman in my team who was already expecting. She was about to leave in a month's time. And I had this pushback to actually promote someone else who would already be in the organization and start, on this new energy level and better set and motivationally and so on. But I didn't think it's right, and I didn't do it, and I continued on that particular thing, and I succeeded in the end. And it happened so to be that this particular individual only came back after 2 years, and but I believe it's the right thing to do, and we shouldn't be judging promotions, for example, of whether somebody will go on maternity leave in a month's time or not. Just one example, but I'm not sure if I answered the question, or is there something else to it?
Yeah, it's taking the risks to become, and how LCC equipped you for your current career.
I think the risks that we are facing, to be honest, I face them every day, every meeting, and I've always am torn in between. Okay, I don't think it's right. I want to steer the whole situation in a totally different direction, and to stand up and express your view, get supporters, time it well, understanding the context. It's something that I'm always evaluating, and to be honest, I don't think I would have been able to do that without LCC laying this foundation for this, as I said already a few times. I'm not sure if this answered the question, or if there is anything else I could.
Well, I mean, if there is a continued question, we will encourage people, will encourage students and audience to respond. But Ilianda says, thank you for the question. So I think now, like if you were to make a summary of, of the courageous leadership and the clear do's and don'ts, so what would be your response to that?
So first of all, let me share that, as mentioned, I haven't done this research. If you really want something, like, I definitely recommend.
No, we understand that this is all about your experience.
But something for me, and I would say not a clear do, but something that you could do more often. It's something like courage and leadership is not very mathematical, if you like. It's something what we feel in the moment. That's why it's topic is so dear to my heart. Anyway, but what we can do more, for one thing, I would say, know yourself, know your values, be strong and be explicit about what is truly important to you, what you believe in. I think that's number one, because you will always, well, you are in this constant battle, because I think courage and fear, they come together. You are always in this, should I do it or should I not? Should I raise my hand or should I not? Should I speak up or not? Should I take this job offer where I have no clue about how to start or not? And once you know yourself, you know what's really important to you, I think you will always be guided there. So I think every day we need to spend time to actually be in a good sense of who we are, what we believe in. So that would be number one. The second thing what I thought of is to start small, is reflect, think, catch yourself in that moment when you are thinking, oh, damn, I wish I had the courage. I wish I dared to do this. And then just catch yourself thinking, like, do I really have this thought coming up into my mind? Then pause, think, feel if it's right, just do it. Or if you make a decision not to do it, then reflect what it would mean. But it's something that I think we face every day, little choices that we face every day. We can be either more courageous or less courageous. And that would be number two. The third thing that I wrote down is, especially in the business context, that's appealing to me, where I want to start a small revolution on how things are managed in Danske Bank. I am really choosing my battles and really evaluating the context and preparing well. It's not something that you jump straight without, just because I think I'm right, I'll just now do something completely extraordinary, especially in business setup. Well, I'm working in Danske Bank I have multiple teleconferences like every day. I always evaluate is this the right context for the change that I want to pursue it? Is it the right timing? Is it the right situation? Will I have the right supporters also in the organization whom I could connect with to make a change that I want to implicit? And an example that I'm working on at the moment is getting new skill set of mobile development, for example. It's a change because we all have caps, we have capacity targets and so on. And there is something that I want to build in new in my area of responsibility. And working on multiple business cases, evaluating what it would mean, also for the sake of organization, what benefit it would bring, and timing it appropriately. So the top 3 things would be: know yourself, start small, every day catch yourself, whether you are in this moment, and really evaluate the context around you. And if I was to summarize some don'ts, I had this thought that it's a small line between being courageous and just being stupid or being like completely unprepared. And it's something I think that we also have to be cautious of. What if we had this a bit like situation in Vilnius because of the icy river in Vilnius? There was a dog, and I want to apologize for all of the dog lovers. And the dog stepped onto the ice, and the dog broke into the ice, and the man stepped onto the ice and wanted to save the dog. And it's a very sad story because both of them drowned in the end. But I think even though it was courageous public decision from the owner, but if already the dog broke down in the ice. I know maybe it's not a very good story because it's very controversial, as I say, and people have different opinions, but in my personal opinion, it was just not a very smart thing to do, even though it was courageous.
All right.
So, and the other thing of do less, when we talked about making mistakes, it's that it gives a completely new ground for learning. But at the same time, we need to have what's the right word? We need to have enough credit as well so we are listened to. So if we constantly make mistakes, I don't think we'll always also arrive. It's also about finding the right balance to it.
All right, thank you. I think the summary points now brought more questions. So there, I think the question is, well, could you share some tips, how to manage stress and speak up instead of staying silent? How do you cope with stress?
It's a great question. And to be honest, we just discussed with my teammates today how we can mitigate stress in the teams, because it's a topic that we are openly talking about this already. And I don't think I personally cope with stress that well. I sometimes have honestly sleepless nights, and I wake up in the morning and get myself thinking, Milda, why are you thinking about your project, your team member, Danske Bank, sleep? It's you have a family, everything is all right, don't worry. But somehow at the back of my head, it always keeps going. So how I cope is that it goes back to this greater cause. What I'm trying to do is that I really want to make a change in my area of responsibility, close some very concrete gaps that I see at the moment from the systems landscape that we have, also from the people setup, and seeing that bigger perspective, which I believe will make the whole place better. People will be able to work there also better. They will feel better. It gives me that purpose and that cause. And then I felt to myself, like, it's okay. You will find the solution and it will be all right. So it is truly excellent question, and it's a very difficult. And I think we need to cope what finds how we can find what we each find individually. For me, it's always talking to my husband, playing with my daughters. I think resets the balance also in the right direction.
Well, and what would you say to someone who is afraid to speak up instead of being, silent? Like, what would be the encouraging words you would say? Or, if you had team members amongst, on your team, what would be the advice you would give?
I always encourage them to speak up. It's just, you just have to take this first step. You just have to do it once. And second times, it will be much easier. At the same time as speaking in front of you, it's also not that easy, right? But once you do it once you feel better doing it the second time, you just, if it's in your stomach, with your whole mind, if you feel that it's totally not right, then you just push yourself into this uncomfortable zone and say, there is no other way. There is no other way to do it. You just have to do it yourself. And do it once in a small situation that you face later today, that you face tomorrow. And then day after tomorrow, you'll see, and you will have more courage to do it again.
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, I would encourage then such people to consider coming to LCC and going through the LCC experience, because that is a very good learning ground to learn how to ask questions and how to be in a safe setting where truly, you know, there is no silly question and every question is worth being asked. All right, Milda, maybe some last comments about, you know, encouraging others to take on that courageous leadership. Any last wise words from you to our audience?
I'm not sure if it's that wise or not, but I think if we're to leave you with one thought, as I mentioned, these would be pause, think, feel, go. Just if you feel it's right, if it's truly connected to what you believe in, you just do it. Just do it once, and you'll see what benefit it brings to you and how it can help advance others around you, because it could be that others are in exactly the same situation, just not speaking up, and you will just be that example, and then it will be contagious. You will speak up. Your friend next to you, right? You will do something positive, and then the whole, like, you know, from the mountains, the snow, the avalanche will just pick it up, and it will be just great. Just have to lean in. Feel it, pause it, think about it, feel it, and just go do it.
Well, I really hope, Milda, that your positivity, I mean, and your courage and your, you know, leadership that we felt and that we have seen today will truly be this contagious feeling, you know, that will inspire others, inspire our own students, inspire future students. It's truly it truly was amazing to spend this hour with you in seeing where you've you know, where you've gone from your LCC experience and where your career has led you. I mean, it's great to see that, you know, you're not losing your enthusiasm, but rather that it's growing, and your confidence and your leadership. And, you know, from LCC community, like, I wish you all the best of luck and success as you take on the tasks and as you lead others. We're truly very proud of you.